right. Well, hello and welcome back to another edition of the Alpha Long Form Podcast. I think I've worn the appropriate shoes today.
Let's see.
These are my Incredible Hulk clogs, right? So this is
it's a good looking shoe.
they're pretty fantastic. All right. They're very comfortable. They're not just like a clog. They're more like a Birkenstock. They got, nice, like solid, nice construction from a company called Bravest Studios. And that's why I think with the topic we're going to delve in today, it kind of requires a bit of bravery. Because, this is probably one of those areas we're not supposed to delve into as due to the racist world in which we live. And I'm not referring to white people there.
No.
I was going to come right out and hit that.
Yeah. So today I figured we'd talk a little bit about...
And I'm going to preface... go ahead. And I'm going to preface something before we get into all this. So what are we talking about?
So it's something that happened a couple weeks ago at this point. So it's the incident in Frisco, Texas with a student named Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. So as probably a lot of people have heard already about it, it was at a track meet. It was raining, and essentially, Karmelo Anthony was, a student at the opposing school, and he was sitting under, the homeschool's tent, essentially.
Yeah, they had a tent.
And Austin Metcalf came up and told Karmelo to leave.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be here. This isn't your tent.
And I don't know what you want to say first before I get into
it. So before we get into it, let me just preface something, right? So first off, I don't think either one of us buy into the new modern definition of racism, right? So the new modern definition of racism is you can't be racist if you don't have power. And there's a major flaw in that, a major logic flaw in that. And it was best summed up by a friend of mine who is a triple board certified forensic psychiatrist. And his response to that was, so you're telling me if I took the head of the Ku Klux Klan and I moved him to the middle of a country in Africa where he is absolutely 100% the minority, you're telling me he's no longer racist?
So what's the argument? That you take the Ku Klux Klan?
If you took the head, so the argument today is that you can only be racist if you are in a position of power. And that due to systemic racism, right, and the idea on the left that all of America is built off racism. Everything from the freeways, not all of America was built off the blacks of slavery. I find it really funny they call it the original sin, because I would consider the extermination of the natives to be a little bit greater of a sin than slavery.
Or at least maybe more of an original sin in our country's
history. I mean, yeah. Okay. But that, all that aside, right? The argument is that because if you are not a beneficiary of the systems of power, you cannot be racist. And so my friend, his argument was, so if you're telling me that if I took the head of the Ku Klux Klan and I moved him to a country in Africa that is 98 or higher percent black, he would no longer be racist, according to the liberal definition, the liberal leftist Democrat version of what racism is in this world today.
Well, I would assume the liberal view of racism would be that he'd still be racist.
Well, and in the conversation where he explained this, do you know what the person's response was on the other side? That he would still be racist because he was white. Okay? And so this is the left's favorite thing to do, which is to alter terminology, to change definitions, and just to create this constant onslaught to where everything can only be their definition of it until they choose to change it. Right? And so I don't buy into, and I think it's very toxic, the idea that racism, well, there's a couple ideas around racism that I find very toxic. One is that you can only be racist if you're in a position of power. Bullshit, because everybody has different levels of power. Right?
Yeah.
and you and I could be in a conversation as the two of us, and you could be black and you could have more power over me, just because the system doesn't provide that power. It might be in a job environment. It might be on a sports field. There could be any number of ways that you, as an individual, regardless of your ethnicity, your race, your gender, your religious views, whatever, you could be in a position of power over me. And you could exercise your racism towards me within that sphere of influence that you wield. So I think this idea that racism only exists for white people in America, because I think is a very toxic belief, and I think it frees people literally to do what they truly want to do, which is for them to be racist. And I think you see it all the time in America. I also think it's funny, having been somebody that's lived all over the world, racism, exists in every culture. And even in the cultures where we would view them as homogenous, they're still racist towards different groups within that homogeny, right? It's very much a human characteristic to try and create people as others and to put them below you, right? And there was another thought that I had there's another toxic attribute of it, but we'll save that for later. And so I just want to preface this whole conversation with, I don't believe that just because I am not something, I don't have a uterus, or I'm not black, I can't have an opinion on it. My opinion is valid. I live in this society. I live in it with people with uteruses, with people who are black, Hispanic, Asian, or whatever. I don't have to be whatever your demographic is in order to have an opinion about it, because it impacts me, it impacts my society, it impacts my community. Yeah.
I think it's important to know that, everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
We used to be.
And so,
you and I are no longer are in certain circles.
Yeah, I guess.
And I wholeheartedly refute that.
Everybody is entitled to their own opinion. So some of the stuff we say is more opinion based. Sometimes it's more fact based.
Yeah.
But the opinion side of things, we'll post stuff online and, get some people that agree, some people who disagree. And I really never mind. I don't mind at all. In fact, I appreciate when people disagree on opinion or viewpoints. There's other examples, and this goes on both sides, where people disagree because they're just spewing some complete nonsense.
Yes, absolutely.
When I say nonsense, it's like they're taking stuff that's happened either currently or in the past, and they're completely skewing the facts.
Yes.
To the point where they're just spreading the classic misinformation.
Yeah.
And that goes both ways.
Absolutely.
So you can have a different opinion, but let's at least be talking the same facts.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so then the other thing that I really like is that it's been a couple weeks since it's occurred, and you and I spent about an hour and a half the other night going over a bunch of stuff. And one of the things I really appreciate about you is you provide a check to me, because, and I think one of the things that is going to happen here quite often is we're absolutely not going to talk about something right as it's occurring.
Yeah.
Because it's too difficult to make sure you understand everything that went on. And that was something you brought to the table the other night when we were discussing stuff, and I thought it was really intelligent and very mature. And it was something that I really appreciated, is instead of just rushing out there and trying to formulate opinions and talk about something, we're probably going to be a couple weeks behind on it, because we want you particularly want to make sure that we're coming at it from a viewpoint of as much knowledge as we can about the circumstances.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just feeding into the same issue. Because social media, you get to see, for better or for worse, it's in general, a lot of times, the more stupid the comment, the more attention it gets. So the more stupid they take. And the reason why they're stupid is because they say stuff without really doing much research on it, and then they have such a strong opinion on it.
Yeah.
And so not only they're so strongly opinionated, but their opinion is based off a falsehood.
Correct.
And so that's the reason why it goes so viral. And so you see so much that, again, this goes both ways. And so that's why the left thinks the right is stupid, and that's why the right thinks the left is stupid, is because we live in some social media vacuum of just like a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
And like it's just their algorithms that's pushing the stupidest shit. And then right wing influencers are
point
highlighting
out the dumb shit as that's indicative of everybody on the left.
Exactly.
The left's pointing out the dumb shit on the right and saying that's indicative of the right.
Exactly. And so like that's why
we're gonna have very low ratings. We're gonna have very low followers.
Yeah, we're not gonna get called out quite like that. But we will
we're
still
never gonna go viral.
We still will get called out for some bold opinions. But that's where I think an opinion you're justified, you're allowed to have your own opinion on things.
Correct.
I just try to steer away from just spewing complete utter nonsense. Yes. Although I'll be saying stuff and I'll post it to TikTok, Instagram, whatever platform, YouTube, and there'll still be people that are hating on it. They'll say something, and I still appreciate the comments because that's how we actually end up growing.
Well, constructive critique is better than somebody agreeing with you.
Yeah, or not even constructive critique. You could just say whatever the hell you want, and I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
But they'll say some stuff saying about how basically alluding to the fact that we don't know what we're talking about. We're stupid, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Ultimately, because we have different opinions. But my comment back to those people, because I do comment back, is like, okay, like let's just like, instead of just saying something like that, just point out where you have a difference of opinion or point out where we're wrong.
Yeah.
And let's have a conversation about it. And, if you're truly right, then maybe you change my mind. Or if I still disagree with you, it's whatever. At least we have some kind of constructive conversation.
Yeah. But I was in a conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they went and told their friends that I emotionally abused them in the conversation. And I can assure you, not at one point was I disrespectful. It was just that I had a different opinion about, and what was crazy was I didn't even have a different opinion as to what they were doing in life. Like they felt that because I didn't think the federal government should be funding their field of work, that I was saying they had no value or that their field of work had no value. And I was like, no, and I literally told them, no, I'm not saying that at all. I just think that if the state of Kansas feels that you're of value, the state of Kansas should be funding it. I don't feel that the federal government should be funding it. And so it's just crazy to me how just that simple differentiator was supposedly an abusive assault on them. And I see this kind of stuff all the time, mostly highlighted, like you said, due to social media. But there is a portion of the population that feels like if you disagree with them, you have a different opinion than them, or even if your opinion of a situation that of a group of people that they feel they're part of is negative, that you somehow are attacking them, abusing them, creating emotional trauma, hate speech, the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always going to be people like that that really struggle to try to have a conversation, and a lot of times those people are quite end up being pretty loud online because of that, because they don't really have that discourse in real life. Yeah,
and I'll give you a good example. So I have two friends of mine. They're gay. They're men. They're married. And I was in a conversation online with one of them about how I feel like the LGBTQ movement piggybacked, and I used the word hijacked, that was probably too strong, the civil rights movement in an attempt to get blanketed under the same rights that African Americans have. And I just don't think these two movements, I never went and attended a course on the intersexuality of race and gender or whatever. Which I don't know how you can even have a class on gender, considering gender is just an imaginary construct that nobody believes in who's taking the class. But one of the two felt that I was very inappropriate in saying that. The other one does not. So even within that marriage of those two men, there's a disagreement there. Obviously, they don't view each other. One of them's not a homophobic bigot. I mean, they're married to one another, right? But for some reason, by me voicing my opinion, the one that had a problem with it, thinks that I'm attacking them or whatever. Well, I've put my money where my mouth is in that community. Like I don't support everything. I don't support anything about any community. I've criticized my boy Trump multiple times in the last 90 days. So just because I do doesn't mean I don't overall support him. And so I think that's one of the problems too in these conversations is I can support a community. I don't have to agree with every single thing about you or every argument you're making. And I don't know where we got into this idea that we have to.
Yeah, it's the all or nothing argument.
Yeah, it's insane to me.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. So, anyways, we are going to get into a sensitive topic today, I think.
A little bit sensitive.
So, Karmelo Anthony.
When you first hear it, you're thinking about the, basketball legend, New York Knicks.
Yeah.
Karmelo Anthony, except his name's spelled with a C instead of a K.
Yeah.
So maybe that's also why, this got some news because it sounds like Carmelo. But no, so it's Karmelo Anthony. And so, like I said, this happened in Texas. So Austin Metcalf, they're both 17. So Austin Metcalf, 17-year-old at Memorial High School. And then I believe Karmelo Anthony was Centennial High School, also 17-year-old. So they're both athletes. So this at a track meet. I believe they both also play football. And ultimately there was a rain delay. And for whatever reason, Karmelo Anthony was under the Memorial High School's tent, just on the bleachers. And ultimately Austin Metcalf came in, told him that, not really supposed to be here. Not supposed to be here. Things got a little bit heated. Like Karmelo, according to witness reports and police reports, like Karmelo Anthony essentially said, like, touch me and find out what happens. Like, fuck around, find out.
Yeah.
And so there's physical altercation, which I will say it is initiated by Austin Metcalf.
Correct.
In this case. And things just continue to escalate, and then Karmelo Anthony pulls a knife out of his backpack
and stabs him to death.
Stabs him right in the chest, happens to be right in the heart. Karmelo Anthony kind of flees the scene, throws a knife, I think under the bleachers. I don't know what good that does.
No. It's not like everybody didn't watch you do it.
I read that, and I tried fact checking it, and it sounded like it is right. And so that, to me, that part is bizarre because, if you're going to get rid of the murder weapon, why the hell would you throw it under the bleachers?
Well, obviously he was panicked and not thinking.
Yeah, which made no sense to me. And then he ultimately, police find him.
Most people aren't very good at committing crime.
Come back to the crime scene, and basically Karmelo was asking if that would be considered self-defense. Asking if
I heard he tried to tell, he asked the police, is this self-defense?
And so the argument behind self-defense is that if he reasonably had fear of imminent danger, that in this case, like life-threatening imminent danger, that he would have the right to defend himself.
Yes. And
that is where his argument dies right there.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, again, innocent until proven guilty type of thing. But let's be real. As guys, I know for myself, I had plenty of instances, whether it be middle school, elementary school, high school, college, adult life, that you get into altercations, and I've even been in fist fights, and there's no imminent threat.
But
you don't pull any kind of knife, and this wasn't even a fist fight. It's in my opinion, something like this, worst case scenario, Karmelo would throw a punch, or Austin Metcalf throw a punch, and ultimately nobody gets in legal trouble. They just, they fight, they break it up, move on, track meet continues, and, life goes on. So definitely, obviously, using any kind of weapon, like a knife, is not proportionate to the threat faced. And so that's why, therefore, the self-defense argument would fall flat.
Well, possibly, right?
Definitely.
So I always like to try and see if my views can align regardless as to the circumstances. Well, not the circumstances, because circumstances matter, but like, are there other examples of something similar?
Yeah,
Right?
I'm just going based off like the law, and unless something comes out that hasn't been reported in these police reports, or there's some kind of video evidence that goes against the witness testimony, that would be the only thing that could save him.
Well,
I know like right now, people are talking about first-degree murder. I don't think it's be first-degree murder because that requires premeditation. And I think that would be almost impossible to prove in this instance. So
yeah.
I think first-degree murder is just not even a possibility. Again, I'm not a legal expert.
Yeah, but why did America's very first white Hispanic get acquitted of killing Trayvon Martin?
You want to go
Do
into it?
you remember the Trayvon Martin case?
I do a little bit, not as
Yeah, it was a while ago. It
currently
was
informed as-
2013.
yeah, it's been about, I guess 12 years now, yeah.
Yep, yep,
Back when I was in high school.
yep. And so there was a community in which homes were being broken into, stuff was being stolen out of garages and things like this. I think George Zimmerman was a member of the Neighborhood Watch, and he sees Trayvon Martin, who's 17 years old, but by no means a child. I mean, he's age-wise as a child, right? 17 counts as a child.
17 is definitely, in reality, pretty much a full-grown man.
And Trayvon Martin was definitely a full-grown man.
Yeah.
Okay. But he was unarmed, and the only thing he was doing was walking in the rain with a hoodie, carrying a can of Arizona tea with some Skittles. All right. And he had a backpack. And George Zimmerman went out and confronted him, and a fight broke out. And George Zimmerman was able to pull his gun and kill Trayvon Martin. And George Zimmerman was acquitted on all charges.
And in this case, I would venture to guess that one of the biggest reasons why someone like that could get acquitted is due to, like, for example, this Karmelo Anthony case. There's a significant amount of eyewitnesses.
Correct. Well, yeah, so there's no eyewitnesses. Yes, right. You're at a track meet. There's lots of other people around. And I'm pretty positive that George Zimmerman was on his back and his head was being smashed into a concrete sidewalk. And so he was overpowered, and definitely it was within the realm of capability for him to get killed.
I'm reading they had broken nose and lacerations.
Correct.
So I think that's
but I'm
pretty
just saying
solid
but I'm just saying it's a fist fight, right? And in a fist fight, without you having your life at risk, I can still break your nose. I can still create lacerations. I can break your arm. I can break your knee, your ankle, your wrist, your jaw, right? All without technically your life being at risk. So at what point?
I think it also plays into effect. I don't know. So this is a genuine question. Where Zimmerman shot Trayvon Martin, because stabbing somebody in the chest, even if you're not trying to stab him in the heart, is definitely a fatal blow.
Oh yeah. No, if
you want to get away, why
are you pulling a knife out anyways?
Yeah.
I mean, a knife is not what you want to.
But like, for example, if I don't know, and obviously George Zimmerman did not just shoot at Trayvon Martin's knees or something. Or
no, I know he did. He's
died.
on his back, getting his ass whooped.
Sounds like it.
And he pulls his gun and he kills a 17-year-old unarmed kid.
Yeah.
Or technically, I mean, it's hard to use the word kid, but technically, kid,
minor. Yeah,
a minor, a 17-year-old unarmed minor, right? And he gets completely acquitted. Now his whole life's ruined because the left-wing media. That's what they love to do. They love to destroy anybody that is on the wrong side of the narrative, right? Then so there's all these very interesting situations. I feel like our justice system is very much all over the place, right? Because then you have Derek Chauvin kneeling on on the neck of George Floyd, and George Floyd is hopped up on drugs. He's a lifelong degenerate criminal, and who at one point had been resisting arrest, and technically his heart gives out due to the drugs he's on and his state of health. And Derek Chauvin is convicted of murder. Right? So George Zimmerman is not a cop. He confronts an unarmed minor who is not doing anything. He's not in any act of violence or committing a crime. And he gets acquitted. Derek Chauvin is a police officer, had been serving his community for 19 years, I think. Ends up in an altercation with an absolute piece of shit. Someone that if he was white, I would be thankful had died, because I wouldn't want that within my community. And he died in the midst of committing crimes, which I'm all for. So I'm very much against the state being able to kill a citizen. But what I prefer is if in the midst of committing a crime, that's the best time. If the state's going to kill somebody, to me, that's the best time for it to happen. You're in the middle of committing a crime. We can't get you to stop committing crimes. And if in the course of that you die, so be it. That's your business, right? And then you have another case that people are trying to tie this into, and that is one of my all-time favorite people who I've personally met. We should post pictures of me with him. That's Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
And Kyle Rittenhouse, they're trying to compare this to that, are they not?
Yes, I was going through. So I try to get some. So my research goes through a few main channels. So obviously looking at all these news websites, using a lot of ChatGPT to kind of cross-reference. But then I also do other things. In this case, like looking through Reddit, which is very left. And so it's kind of like getting the leftist viewpoint instead of just like me going on X or something and saying, all that leftist. Because, people on Reddit would tell you that X is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
So I'm going through Reddit, and there was a mixture of people that, either hadn't heard of this particular story, Karmelo Anthony, at all, which makes sense because it's not something that the liberal news outlets are pushing. And then there's some people who, do condemn murder. And there's others that are saying that it's self-defense, and then quite a few others that are comparing it to other cases. So Rittenhouse is the one that comes up by far the most. I think just similar ages, relatively recent. Well, that was 2020. So just not even 5 years ago at this point. That was summer of 2020, I believe. And but it is pretty crazy that how the difference in self-defense goes, because there's witnesses to both accounts,
correct.
Rittenhouse and Karmelo Anthony. So it's not like we're going to hear.
And Rittenhouse, not only was he not convicted, he also received significant sums of money from all the major left-wing propaganda outlets like CNN and MSNBC.
Yep.
For their blatantly false reporting. And even Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are on video still continuing to push the false narrative about him, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah,
they used him in an ad campaign
with him carrying his gun
as
fear mongering.
Yeah, fear mongering for racism and everything. Not a single person he attacked or defended himself against was anything other than white.
Yeah, I was like looking up at the...
And one of the guys he killed was literally screaming the N-word earlier in the day and is on video. So it's like, yeah, I mean, and everybody he killed, the two people he killed and the one person his army blew in half were absolute degenerate pieces of shit again. It's just, that was one of my favorite memes from the assassination attempt from Donald Trump. A liberal nutbag shoots at Donald Trump, and who do they hit? A father, a firefighter. Like a good upstanding citizen. Kyle Rittenhouse shoots 2 people and injures 1. He gets like a domestic violence, a child molester, and a fucking, felon. I mean, it's like, this is what are the odds of the 3 people that Kyle Rittenhouse kills all being people that, quite honestly, are just pieces of shit, right?
Yeah. I think it's pretty funny, too, that with how big of a story, the Rittenhouse thing was pretty big.
Yeah.
The whole Summer of Love, but this was, pretty big. And it's just crazy that, like in this case, like I'd forgotten mostly that these victims weren't black.
None of them.
Hispanic or
not a
that they're all white.
Not a single victim of Kyle Rittenhouse. You want to call them victims? I don't think they're victims. I think they got exactly what they deserved.
Well, they
You're chasing somebody down.
It's also not the smartest thing to do.
Not when somebody's got an AR.
And the first person, I think it was the Rosenbaum, Joseph, and I'm pretty sure he provoked the first altercation, and then from there everything just happened because of that.
Yeah, because they're watching that happen. But they all want to gang rush the situation,
and not very intelligent.
They're a fucking mob.
Yeah, but I just like.
No, and I got to tell you.
I'm not even saying one side's wrong, whatever. I was saying objectively is not a very smart thing to do. No. And one guy was armed. I think it was.
Yeah, the last guy had a gun. He drew a pistol and he got his arm shot in half.
I think that was Gage. I think Anthony
and he was a felon and he wasn't supposed to even have a gun. Kyle Rittenhouse is not a felon.
Yeah.
And his gun was legal.
Yeah. So I think a lot of that, and whether or not the victims are white or black, like I think my big viewpoint is like race is just not the factor that the media was pushing on this.
It never was in that.
Exactly. And then same with this Karmelo Anthony case. I truly don't think it's a race thing. We're talking about
it's getting turned into one, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it's getting turned into one because there is a massive problem. And I'm just call me racist for saying this. There's a massive problem in a portion of the black community. Like I said, if George Floyd was white, there's not a white person on the planet that would have stood up for that human.
We also really wouldn't have heard about it.
Oh, well, 1, you would have never heard about it. And 2, anybody that knew the guy would have been glad he was gone.
Yeah.
Right? We would never sacrifice a member of law enforcement who was a contributing member of society onto the altar of leftist bullshit. If George Floyd was white and a black cop had kneeled on him and held him down and he had died, we would all be glad the white version of George Floyd had died. He held a gun to a pregnant woman's belly, threatened to kill her. The guy was an absolute piece of shit.
And like whether or not we'd be glad or not is whatever. But I certainly wouldn't have cared one way or the other.
No, it's just like, and the baseline would have been you don't care
because you do shit like that. Like I hate to say it, but you do shit like that. You just run the risk. I'm not saying you should die. It's just like when you do stupid, evil shit in the first place.
Yeah,
it's like you're putting yourself at risk. I'm not saying you should die.
Yeah,
it's like the same.
This isn't the guy that was selling black market cigarettes and got choked to death in New York.
Yeah. So I think
you remember that guy?
No. When was this?
This was even earlier. There was a black guy that was just selling, because New York has all the most insane Democrat laws. And so they've put so much taxes on cigarettes, they've created a black market for him. And this guy's out there on the street selling cigarettes. And some altercation occurs between him and the police, and I think he died.
And see, before you even tell me whether it's white, black, Hispanic, or above any of them, I hate to say it, but when you do stuff like that, you're just putting yourself at risk.
You are putting yourself at risk, right? I do believe that in our society, we should have law enforcement that goes above and beyond in an attempt not to kill people.
Yeah, I agree. Especially the cigarette thing. Again, I don't know whether there's white or black. Maybe you shouldn't even tell me at all. In my opinion, that's less of a severe crime than something like George Floyd. But again, this is the world the Democrats created in New York. Why were the cops able to harass the cigarette seller in the first place? Because Democrats created the most insane set of laws to limit people from being able to do what they wanted, which is smoke cigarettes. Now, they somehow can understand this when it comes to weed and heroin and everything else, but for some reason, cigarettes
and big gulps were okay for the Democrat state system of oppression to tax into creating a black market. But really, it's a pretty, like, you want to talk about, like, they all want to claim that somebody who enters America illegally isn't a criminal. Well, I got news for you then. Me selling the cigarettes on the street can't possibly make me a criminal either.
Yeah.
But but you are, because the state, the leftist Democrat tyrannical state, has created a system in which there's a black market for cigarettes, of all things. Right? So I just think it's interesting, the cases, like you said, they're trying to go to Kyle Rittenhouse, someone who clearly was defending himself, who clearly was being assaulted, clearly being attacked.
And there's witness testimony.
Shit tons of witnesses. And one of them was armed. They hit him in the head with a skateboard.
Yeah.
Right? Now.
And he was, I also want to say, like, Kyle Rittenhouse was fleeing. Like, he was running.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he was, like,
but again, so
I'm
enjoying being devil's advocate here with you on this case, because, you know, you talk about, well, fuck around and find out. Well, I got news for you. What was the kid's name that died?
Austin Metcalf.
Austin Metcalf. Now, I'm by no means trying to victim shame or anything, but just because somebody dies doesn't mean you can't criticize their course of action. What in our society, what should have occurred?
If you want to go to some idealistic society that doesn't happen in real life.
No. You know, it does happen. It happens in real life. It happens all the time. What happens all the time?
You grab a coach, you grab a teacher, you grab...
Exactly.
There's going to be, at big events like that, there's going to be like a police officer there.
And you don't even need to go to the police.
Yeah, but like...
Just go get your coach. Just go get a teacher. And be like, hey, we got a kid from the opposing team hanging out in here, and we want him out.
Yeah. But as someone who like has lived in reality, and then like I grew up playing... I was playing high school sports, just baseball, not track, but like... I just know shit that like how guys are.
Yeah.
Like, this is like super light work. This is like nothing, dude.
No, it should have been nothing.
Like, even if it was a fist fight, that'd be like,
you fight
for
it out.
better or for worse, run in the middle. Like, it's like you watch all the movies and stuff, and people dudes getting fist fights over girls.
Nobody
and sports.
But like
nobody
ever really gets that hurt in a fist
fight.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. But it's like shit like that. I don't care how much of an athlete you are. Like, happens.
Yeah. The only time I've seen anybody ever really get hurt in a fist fight was somebody had the unfortunate mistake of swinging on a Samoan.
I'm guessing Samoan was a pretty big dude too. I'm saying
I don't even know that they. I just don't even know that they need to be. I assure you, you don't want to swing on a Samoan or a Tongan. All right.
That's fair.
A little known fact about Samoans: they have the densest bone structure out of any ethnic group on the planet. They have the highest chance per portion of population of making it into the NFL. You do not want to come into physical contact with one in a hostile way.
Yeah.
So I watched this Samoan throw the shortest, easiest punch I've ever seen, and I'm pretty sure the dude's jaw was broken in like 3 different places. He was unconscious. So, but most people don't have the ability to do that.
No, definitely not.
I mean, it was the craziest thing. It was just this little whap. Like, I just thought he like tapped him.
Yeah.
No, he wrecked him.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Most people not. And
but nobody pulled a knife. Nobody pulled a gun. Nobody, you know.
Yeah, and in this instance, I don't even think it escalated to that point. There was physical contact. Like, I'm pretty sure grabbing, shoving, stuff like that. But nowhere in there where you're fearing for your life. That's the reason why the self-defense argument won't hold. But he won't like.
No, I don't think it will. But the reason I brought up the Trayvon Martin and the white Mexican, which I didn't know existed until George Zimmerman and CNN invented the term out of whole cloth, was just because, like, there's room for people to go, well, what about this? What about that? Right? And we want justice. Justice is supposed to be blind. Justice is supposed to be equally distributed. Right? And so that's where I think some of these things get a little more difficult, is because you got to get into the nuances of it. Right? If I'm on my back and somebody's bigger than me and they're smashing my head into a sidewalk, well, guess what? I can claim, even though you're unarmed, that my life was in imminent danger.
Well, and then even without that, though, without like the witnesses, like, you have to, the prosecution, like, the evidence is like on the part of the prosecution. The prosecution is like responsible for bringing evidence to the court that that person is guilty of a crime.
Correct.
Like the defense doesn't have to provide evidence that they're not guilty. The prosecution has to do that. And for better or for worse, even if George Zimmerman, not saying he was guilty, but even if he was guilty of what he was originally charged with, he still probably could have gotten away with it because there's no witness testimony. And like, therefore, there's not really any proof. I mean, it would definitely be harder. So the fact that he had a broken nose, stuff like that, definitely helped. I mean,
there
was
evidence that he was getting his.
Like, if he didn't have any scratches on him, that'd be pretty hard.
Yeah, you don't get to claim that, right?
Yeah, you could try, but it probably wouldn't work out. So definitely the broken nose stuff helped.
And now let's go to another situation. It's the flip side of it, right? You had the attorney and his wife in St. Louis, and you had a Black Lives Matter rally going through their neighborhood. It was a gated. I think it was supposed to be a gated community of some sort.
And they came up to his house?
And, well, they were just in the street, and they came out on their street, and they brandished firearms. Now, they didn't shoot anybody. They didn't hurt anybody. But the fact that they branded it, two white people brandishing firearms on a crowd of Black Lives Matter activists, they were arrested. Their guns were taken from them. All right. And their claim that they were just trying to make sure nobody came onto their property and do anything with it did not hold up. So the reason why I point that out is because I think people all the time are always trying to say that like George Zimmerman got off because he was a white Hispanic, right? And so there's some kind of racial component here, or that Kyle Rittenhouse, because he's white, well, his victims were white as well, right? So I don't think that the justice system is as slanted towards in favor of white people as much as people make it out to be. I definitely think there is an element there that does impact verdicts at times. I don't think it's right to either to swing the pendulum and to sacrifice Derek Chauvin on behalf of the altar of race in America either. But I just think that, like, you know, well, so the thing that I find interesting about this case, and you brought it up earlier off camera, and I think you should get into it, is what's taking place now in regards to fundraising.
Yeah. So both families set up a fundraiser.
On what platforms?
So let's see. Austin Metcalf, so the victim, was able to GoFundMe because of the victim. But Karmelo Anthony, like a case like that goes against GoFundMe's like policy. You can't like have like somebody committed a crime and then raise money through that. So he had to use a platform called, let's see here. Something I'd never heard of, but I think other people like Luigi Mangione used it as well. And I think you were named Kyle Rittenhouse, I think, was using a different platform.
Yeah. Dude, I loved, I donated money to Kyle Rittenhouse, and every time I did, I would donate it in the name of the head of Planned Parenthood. Because you give it any name in there you want. So, because I knew that it would get leaked. I knew it would be hacked, and I knew it would be leaked. So I just couldn't wait for people to go through there and see that the head of Planned Parenthood was donating to Kyle Rittenhouse's defense.
Hell yeah.
And I'd put like the most horrendous comments in there. Like I'd put, hey, thanks for getting two we missed. Post-term abortions.
There you go. So hopefully somebody saw that. Hopefully it was worth it.
I really hope so.
So Karmelo Anthony, it was on a platform called Give, Send, Go.
Yeah, Give, Send, Go. I think that was what Kyle Rittenhouse used.
So exact same concept where you set a goal and you're raising it. So as of yesterday, so these are yesterday's numbers, Karmelo Anthony had about $430,000 toward a $500,000 goal. I'm not sure how they decided on a $500,000 goal. That's quite a bit of money, but they raised $430,000, and that's within 13 days of the crime.
Jeez.
And then Jeff Metcalf, so that's the father of Austin Metcalf, has raised $350,000 towards a $370,000 goal. So even though technically they're closer to the goal, they're lagging behind Karmelo Anthony by $80,000.
Yeah. Dude, is Luigi Mangione, whatever his name is, does he have a funding page?
Oh, yeah, he's got a ton of money, dude. Let's see. I'll look it up.
Because I was watching interviews where they're interviewing all these women that are like calling him like this, that it's hard to find a moral, upstanding man like Luigi anymore in the world. I'm just like,
I think I saw that exact clip, but
what?
Yeah, it's crazy.
They're all like wanting to date the dude.
So as of April 11, 2025, he had raised $870,000 toward a $1 million goal.
Jeez.
And it's just that one's even that like this Karmelo Anthony one. I think it's more cut and dry. I think he's got less support. Like I think, people ultimately.
So how do you think you raise almost $500,000 when you can't, when you're at a high school sporting event and you can't handle shit the way it's been handled for 100 years between guys, and you decide you're going to stab somebody in the heart and kill them?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I am surprised by that total dollar amount, but you never know. You never know. There's a couple big people donating, but that dollar amount does surprise me. But from what I've read, I think he's got less support overall. Not saying that Luigi has all that much support, to be honest, but I think Luigi Mangione has like more overall support. But I just think it's pretty funny because even though the supporters are relatively small, they're there. But unfortunately, Karmelo Anthony is going to spend a lot of time in prison.
Yeah.
Luigi is going to spend a lot of time in prison. There's some people out there that legitimately think Luigi's going to walk. That's not going to happen.
Not a chance.
I don't think that many people really think Carmelo's going to walk out on this. I think it's like a very
you don't think some leftist
there's some
hack court.
There's always no.
You don't think the prosecution's going to create some bullshit plea deal?
No, I mean maybe a plea deal for like a manslaughter charge or something, which I don't know what I would assume that's like 10 years. I don't know, 10, 15 years. I actually don't know. They're not going to get that. So. With Karmelo, it's not going to be first-degree murder. I would assume Luigi would be first-degree murder, though, because that was definitely premeditated. That's about as premeditated as it gets.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like Luigi actually has a little bit more support. Like it's maybe like 20% support, which is way more than I think. But it's way less than what those supporters think. They think there's a big support and there's not.
Do you think we could start something where you take like a Karmelo and a Luigi, and then like for like a reduction in sentence, you square them off against each other on pay-per-view or something?
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
that'd be a good.
Kyle Rittenhouse would be the GOAT.
Yeah, dude.
Dude, I'll tell you because you said something earlier. I wanted to throw this out there. So I've got 3 years almost of combat time, and I've been on stack teams and the whole 9 yards. And I got to tell you, watching Kyle Rittenhouse handle himself on all those videos, I was wildly impressed. I mean, I couldn't believe that kid had never actually been in combat. Like, even after he gets knocked to the ground, he's on his butt, he's turning, he's spinning, he's still popping off shots, severs that dude's arm through the bicep. I was like, dude, you could have rolled with us.
Yeah. I think he does have is planning on being law enforcement, so maybe not overseas or anything, but domestically, I think that's pretty cool. Obviously, he'd face some criticism by the people who don't like him, but
no,
I don't think they have much to say on that.
Whether you don't like him or not, that dude handled business.
Yeah,
I mean, it was impressive.
Yeah.
So
you got anything else on this case you want to?
No, I would just like to see, I'd really like to see just less, because I watched this woman, African-American lady, sit here and spew her stupid-ass opinion about the Karmelo Anthony thing. And it's clearly just, and she's just one, and I'm not trying to say she's indicative of all black people or everybody on the left or whatever, but it's like, I think we really need to work as a society on calling out our bad apples. Stop defending people because you think they look like you. Just because somebody looks like you doesn't mean shit. They're not part of you. They're not part of your group. They're not part of your community. Just because, like I have a situation going on right now where, and it's like everybody's in my same religion, right? And it's hard for people to wrap their head around when you go to church with somebody and you see them, that then you can see them act in a way that is completely lacking character and moral value. But just because they go to church with you, just because they look like you, just because they come from your part of the country or the woods, or you have similar culture, None of that means anything. There's no connection. I don't even care if you're family, right? I don't need to defend the bad actions of my family members. Why do I need to defend the bad actions of my family members? Some people who are directly related to me by blood because they're related to me. Like, and I know that, like, you know, a lot of this is probably just because I'm white and American. I don't view myself as like I don't know. I just don't view myself as like part of a white community. I even within my church, which I do feel part of that community, I still, you know, I mean, I guess that's the closest I could relate to it, right? I had a guy call me up and tell me he had done business with 5 people of my same faith, and he said, "You're the first one that's not an absolute total piece of shit." And that hurt. But I didn't want to attack him for it. I didn't want to tell him you're a religious bigot for that. It hurt because, like, that's not how I want people who are part of my group to represent my group. Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's an element out there in all groups who, instead of wanting to, and this is wildly prevalent among law enforcement, and I'm a huge supporter of law enforcement, but it's wildly prevalent among law enforcement where you feel you're so attacked all the time. And you see it, right? And I personally believe you saw it with the Pete Hegseth Waltz data leak, right? You can't come out as a conservative or as a Republican and go, "Hey, that was some dumb shit. We fucked up. We're gonna get them off signal. We're gonna make sure they understand the policies." You know, I specifically, you know, if I was Trump, I'd be like, I specifically hired people who are not career bureaucrats. A lot of all this minutia, these rules are new to them. We're gonna make these kind of mistakes, but we're gonna acknowledge them. We're gonna admit that they're mistakes, and we're gonna fix them. And I'm not getting rid of these guys just because they don't understand the bureaucratic bullshit and they mess this up. That to me would be the appropriate way to have handled the Pete Hegseth Waltz thing. Now, I might go even harder than that, because being military, if I had ever done that, I would have been in huge trouble. Right? And you should not, as a leader, you should never be affording the top brass leeway you don't afford the people below you. It's a real quick way to lose trust and confidence. But I also understand why you can't do that in this environment. Because your enemy, the Democrats, will take everything you just said as an admission of fault and attack you relentlessly for it. And the Republicans do it to the Democrats. So you just create these two, sides where everybody has to just entrench themselves, right? And I think this happens in a certain segment in religion, in race. It's like, you know, George Floyd's a piece of shit and a white cop kills him. So now we have to prop George Floyd up and have 5 fucking funerals for him and have Obama give a eulogy and all the rest of this bullshit for a man that's absolutely despicable and no society should want them part of it. Right? And then in this case, Karmelo Anthony, you have people hopping on social media, and just because he's black and they're black, they've got to try and claim that there's so many other injustices that have been done to black people, you can't possibly fault Karmelo Anthony for having stabbed some kid to death. Right? And they'll go back to George Zimmerman got away with it and Kyle Rittenhouse got away with it. And so that has to warrant my guy getting away with it. Well, why is he your guy?
Yeah, it's no one's guy.
He's no one's guy. George Floyd was no one's guy. Kyle Rittenhouse is no one's guy. Right? George Zimmerman is no one's guy. I mean, there's someone. They're their family members.
It's just funny it's just funny to me that, like, most of these cases that we're talking about aren't even like political, and they're just.
But they get turned. They get latched on by our political ruling class.
Yeah.
And used to divide everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And how about we just acknowledge that George Zimmerman, you know, I don't know if he should have gone out there and approached Trayvon Martin or not.
He shouldn't have.
Well, I mean, his neighborhood watch. What the fuck's the point of neighborhood watch? I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I've never been part of one. Right. I do know that when you call cops, a lot of times they don't do shit because our police force is designed to be reactive, not proactive, right? It's specifically designed that way, right? I know multiple people who have been harmed and are harassed, and you can't get police to do anything because up until an actual legitimate, verifiable crime is committed, the police can't do anything. Yeah. And it's done this way on purpose. You don't want a police state running around.
Well, and also like
this is a minority report.
The amount of time that they'd be wasting. Not saying that.
Oh, no, they would be wasting. They'd be wasting a ridiculous amount of time, and you'd have to have this insanely huge law enforcement to be going around chasing every person who wanted to report a threat or illicit or bad behavior. So you're a neighborhood watch. You can't get the police to do anything. Your homes are getting broken into. Shit's getting robbed. You see somebody walking through your neighborhood at night in the rain with a hoodie pulled up. They got a backpack on, right? So you confront them. Should he confront them or not? I don't know. I can tell you what also shouldn't have happened. Trayvon Martin shouldn't have been a fucking asshole. Because I guarantee you, if he would have just been cool about it all, then there'd be no confrontation. But he wasn't. So you got one guy possibly interfering with somebody that he shouldn't have. You got another guy who's going to be a fucking asshole about it. And then you end up with an altercation that goes down. And the guy without the gun gets the better of the other one. And then the guy with the gun pulls the gun and caps him off, right? There's so many different breakdowns along the path to get there, right? But again, it's like, I'm not going to sit there and go, because George Zimmerman is a white Hispanic, I've got to defend George Zimmerman. I also think you should be allowed to defend your neighborhood and your community. I think you should be able to go up to somebody and have a decent, normal conversation. Be like, hey, like, what's going on? What are you doing here? I represent the neighborhood's community watch. We've been having problems. And I'm just out here to check to make sure everything's cool. I mean, I've had my home broken into 2 times since October 21. And I have 17 cameras on my home, all with night vision, audio, lights, full color night vision, recording. And, I got news for you. Like, one of these times it's not going to end well for one of these people. Right? Now, I've been fortunate. They're all white. So I'm going to be able to cap them off and not have anybody accuse me of racism. Thank goodness. The first time was 3 people. 2 of them were armed with guns drawn. And they broke into one of our cars that was in our portico because it doesn't have garage doors. And then the last time, a buddy of mine was over, and it was a guy with a ski mask, and he broke into his car and stole like $300 in dumb shit. Right? But like, I don't know I think a community should have the ability to go out and question people and protect their community. I think the police should always err on the side of protecting life, not taking it. And I'm going to even say at their own expense. That comes with the job.
Yep.
Right? I don't think you should just sit there and let somebody kill you by any means because you're in law enforcement. But our law enforcement should function from a standpoint of, as little death as possible, right? I think people should really get off the whole because somebody looks like me, I got to come to the defense and back them up on it. And so I guess in the George Zimmerman and the Kyle Rittenhouse case, both of those people were trying to protect their communities. People try to claim that because they try to make it out like, Kyle Rittenhouse traveled from out of state to cause a problem. No, it's like us here. If I got in an altercation in Kansas City, Missouri, and you say I live in Kansas.
Yeah, how far did Rittenhouse live from?
I think it was like 16 miles or something. It was not like, and those were his friends, and the people that owned the car dealership that he was at were people he knew.
Because I don't know the geography there. I don't know how close to the state line, but yeah, like for where we live now, we just drive a few miles over. We're in Missouri.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've always lived like right on that state line, basically. And so it's like, yeah, traveling from Kansas to Missouri is like a 10-minute trip.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of times, things too here is like the system, and I'm not saying this applies to the Karmelo Anthony thing, but the system kind of creates some of this, right? We have friends that own a jewelry store down on the plaza in Kansas City, Missouri. And so they're friends. We know them. That's where their business is. They don't live there. They live near us, right? And during the summer of love and peace, when BLM was getting buck wild, burning shit to the ground and killed 19 people, they have video, 4 hours. 4 hours of people with saws cutting through the bulletproof windows of their jewelry store to steal their shit. 4 hours. No action on the part of law enforcement. So you're telling me if that my friends called us up and said, hey, I need help protecting my business. And we went down there. Like, that's not my community as well? Oh, it's my community. And I assure you, we'd come rolling in hot. And if you're sitting there and you're not going to back down with your saws and trying to break in and steal their shit, bad things are going to happen to you. Right? Like, what are they supposed to do? Just go, I'll let my business get ransacked and hope I can recover through insurance claims?
Yeah, because everybody says, yeah, you got insurance, but that isn't really... What? I don't think anybody, even if the insurance did cover it, I don't think anybody wants to go through that in the first place.
Hell no.
And that's best case scenario, so...
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just interesting to me how agitated everybody is and how tribal everybody is, and tribal around sexual orientation or gender or race or religion or all these things. And I think it would really help if people were to identify bad apples in their own community.
Yeah.
And push them out.
Yeah. And ending things on a little bit of a lighter note, like it is worth pointing out that so this happened on April 2nd, going back to the Karmelo Anthony case, but within like 24 hours, so by April 3rd, Austin Metcalf's dad was already on TV talking about how he forgives Karmelo Anthony.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's incredible.
Yeah. That's literally the April 3rd, the very next day. So most likely within 24 hours.
Yeah. And think about what that does to calm a community down, right? No, he's not out there encouraging people to take to the streets and burn shit down and vengeance for his son and any of the rest of that, right? He's out there doing what a respectful member of a community should do. Call for peace, call for forgiveness, right? And his dad might even agree with me on this one, because I was going to bring this up earlier, and it's not my place or whatever, but if your son is a teenager, I mean, I don't know why the dude's pulling a knife and stabbing anybody, right? But like, do I want that kid in prison forever? Heck no. Right? Like, you fucked up. I think you need to go through some treatment to figure out why you would go to such extreme lengths in an altercation like that. And somebody should be able to determine how significant of a continued threat you are to your community. And if you have a history of other violence and crime, then I would have the penalty be stiffer. But if that's the first thing this Karmelo Anthony kid has ever gotten in trouble for, right? Then I don't even know that I'd want him having to, like, even if it was my son that had died, I don't know that I want a whole nother life ruined out of vengeance. And even 10 years in prison ruins that life.
Yeah, especially at the age of 17.
Yeah. You get out of you're gonna go to prison for murder till you're 27 years old.
It's a pretty important time of your life.
Absolutely, right. And so, but again, one of the things that, like I said, in that situation that I've been dealing with, one of the things that I've thought a lot about is justice and mercy. And I feel like as a society, we're always trying to award mercy to people, whether it's illegal immigrants or whether it's criminals or whatever. And one of the things that I've come to realize is that you can't award mercy to one person without creating an injustice towards another. Every time you forgive somebody who came over here illegally, you're creating an injustice towards all the people who are trying to do it the right way. Every time you show mercy to a criminal, you are creating an injustice to the people they have harmed, right? And so it's like, how do you create that? How do you create restitution where the offender fulfills their obligation to the community so that mercy can be provided to them? Because that's ultimately what I would think our criminal justice system should want to do, is identify whether or not their like the harm that they've done, right, is either going to continue or not continue, and then B, can restitution be paid? And so, like in that case, the people who are harmed are the other boy's family and friends, and if the dad is already coming out and forgiving him, then can you, as a justice system, if this kid Karmelo Anthony hasn't harmed lots of other people before that, and this is just a one-off situation, is it fair for the family members of what's his name?
The victim?
The victim.
Austin Metcalf.
Yeah, Austin Metcalf. Can the family of Austin Metcalf have input onto what the penalty to Karmelo Anthony is and show mercy, because they're the ones that have been harmed, right? I mean, the ultimate person who's harmed has no say in it. He's dead. But his parents and his siblings could say, hey, you know what? This is the first time this thing has ever happened. Maybe they even get a chance to meet with him and talk to him. And they could say, hey, we don't want this kid going to prison for 10 years. We don't want his life ruined to that extent.
Yeah, I think they can, if they really wanted that, they could advocate on his part. But at the end of the day, I think law and order has to stand. So
no, it does. It does.
Whatever the penalty is, whatever the jury decides, and I think should be the penalty. Yeah. And then, however the sentencing goes, whatever kind of sentence he gets, I guess we'll see. I guess no one knows, but
yeah. Anyways, that's my views on it.
Yep.
I've got a call.
Yep.
But no, I think this was a good. We'll see what kind of feedback we get.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to always say? We didn't say at the beginning. Like, follow, subscribe.
All the above. Everything.
Leave a bunch of hateful comments. Troll us.
Yeah, troll us. Give us good comments, bad comments, anything.
Crack on me for my shoes.
Yeah, dislike the video if you don't like the shoes. I don't care, one or the other. So
awesome. Until next week, this is Elliot.
Nathaniel.
Signing off.